All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to show you the right way to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. You ready? All right, here we go. It's going to be a lot easier than you think. Hello, and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about EZD6, and more specifically, we're going to look at Wasted World, which is a playset for EZD6, and that may raise a few questions, so let's dig into this thing and see what the brilliance of GM Scotty has brought us this time. Spoiler alert, it's pretty great, and I'm going to be sounding like an absolute shill because the mind of Scotty is a wonderful, beautiful thing, albeit it's a little bit chaotic in there, but what's genius without a little bit of chaos, right? It's like writing and alcoholism. It goes hand in hand. Excuse me. So first things first, like always in these videos, I am not being paid to do this. As a matter of fact, this time, Scotty doesn't even know that I'm making this video. These are my own words, and truth be told, I wasn't even going to do this video because I figured everybody else and their brother had already done it because, well, EZD6 is awesome. Oddly enough, there's not much out there on it, or at least not that I saw. Which is a real shame. EZD6 should be getting a lot more traction than what it seems to be getting. Maybe the world just isn't ready for greatness, I don't know. But what I do know is that I need to get on with this because there's a lot to cover, and that actually brings me to my very first point. I expected the Wasted World book here to be rather small in comparison to the original EZD6 book. I figured most of the core rules would be repeated, and there'd just be a handful of fun new things to shake up your regular EZD6 play. Meaning, you could probably grab this book and be well on your way, even if you didn't have the original. I should also note that I hadn't been following the development in any way whatsoever, so that was all just complete assumption on my part. So imagine my surprise when I grabbed it and saw that not only does it have 27 more pages than the original book, but on the first page it says, you will need your core rule book.
So this is what it feels like to be wrong.
And on the note of the first page, I'll just read off this part right here. A playset is an alternate setting for EZD6. This one's called Wasted World, a post-apocalyptic world set in the not-too-distant future where something freakadelic has changed the surface and sky as well as meddled with the DNA of life on the planet. Can you dig it? It has new paths, gears, guns, tech treasures, vehicles, and extra rules to make playing a Wasted World even more epic and dangerous. You'll need your EZD6 core rules, and be sure to read the Rabble Rouser section for more changes and optional rules. These will add apocalyptic flavor to your EZD6 stew. Right away, you get the vibe for what you're getting into, but there's something else on this page I want you to notice. Up here it says, while exploring Wasted World, you'll come across nods and inspirations everywhere. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is Johnny 5. You can't tell me you didn't think of that when you saw it. Unless you haven't seen the movie, which is probably the case because that was what, the 80s? Man, squirrels don't last that long, you know. Anyway, let's see what's actually inside this thing. Now, this probably isn't very important to many of you, but as a squirrel who spends entirely too much time staring at a screen, it was one of the first things I noticed and greatly appreciated. In the first EZD6 book, or the PDF at least, you may or may not have noticed a lack of bookmarks. Yes, you can always add your own, but it's nice when they're already there. So this is EZD6, and this is EZD6 Wasted World. Look at all those bookmarks. All right, so first up on the list is the new classes. We have the Android, Clone, Hunter, Machine Head, Mutie, Rambler, Scavvy, Wasteland Warrior, the Weird, and Jack. And there's a couple things going on here other than just, hey look, it's new classes. In original EZD6, you would pick a class, then 2 or 3 inclinations depending on whether or not you are human or some other species. In Wasted World, however, it's a little bit different. Let's look at the Android class for an example, or a path as it calls it. You get your path inclinations like normal, but instead of picking only 2 or 3, depending on whether or not you are human or something else, you will notice over here for Android, it says pick 5. Yeah, boy, all the classes get to pick an additional 4 to 6 inclinations. And to make it even more interesting, there's different lists of inclinations that you can pull from depending on the path you take. So with the Android, we get to pull from the Survivor Talents and Biosynth Packages lists. making sure we pick at least 1 from Survivor Talents and 2 from Biosynth packages. Then we can do whatever we want with the remaining 2. So if you want to lean more into the Android side, well, you could pick 2 more of those. You also get to choose an edge, which is an extra goodie that your character can do. And this has nothing to do with any mechanics, but something that I really like that Scotty added to each of the classes was a small description on what these characters might be like. The few lines of dialogue really drives the point home and is just a super nice touch. Squirrel approved. And you could be Squirrel approved too by clicking that like and subscribe button. Yeah, look out. And at this point you might be thinking, hold up, wait a minute.
Something ain't right.
This isn't a fantasy setting. Did the conjurer and all his circles of sorcery get the boot? And the answer is yes. And no. Sort of. Maybe. Kind of. You have totally not Mama Murphy over here huffing all the jet, also known as Weird.
It's the chems kid.
The Weird can take an edge called Neuroflux, and that's what has the wonderful freestyle element to it, like the conjurers from regular EZD6. Just make sure that you don't roll any 1s. So if the conjurer was your jam back in EZD6, don't worry, you still have plenty of ways you can come up with your own forms of chaos-causing mayhem. Also, last note for classes here, the Jack class is a custom make-your-own type of deal, and that's really cool. Now, once you get past all the pages of inclinations to choose from, you'll hit the section about the wasteland itself. Here it talks about holds, which are like cities and towns and forts and all that good stuff. It also goes into detail about money and what you can expect to find in various types of holds. And then we get to another new concept for EZD6. And this is where I'm going to gush a little bit because it's just like the original EZD6 in the sense that it took something that's generally made entirely too complicated and then simplified it down into something beautiful. So the last video I did, we talked about inventory, which is a real shame because Wasted World added an inventory system, and of course, it's super simple. You get 15 slots for gear with the option to have more through backpacks and certain inclinations. But check this out. Items come in 3 sizes, small, normal, and large. Small items only take up half a slot, and those would be things like grenades and other assorted small tools. Large items are anything that takes 2 hands to use, and those occupy 2 slots. And you could probably piece it together by now, but that means normal items take up 1 slot. Simple, and actually pretty generous with how much you can carry. But here's the part I think is really cool and look forward to trying in a longer series of games. You have generic supplies, right? But each supply you have can be either your food and water or your ammo. You can carry 5 supplies, again with the ability to get more with backpacks and inclinations, and then there's some rules on how they're consumed and how you can find more. For example, 1 supply per day is your food. If you don't use a supply for food, then you don't get overnight healing and can eventually starve to death. Generally, 1 supply will also take care of your ammo, but certain types of weapons need 2. And I think that's just absolutely brilliant. You're not having to count bullets and sandwiches, you just have an abstract supplies stock and that's it. And that means you now have to scrounge around to make sure you don't run out, and who doesn't love constant looting? Different types of enemies have different odds of having supplies on them that you can take, so even after the fun of combat and rolling all the dice in the EZD6 fashion, you get to roll again to see what you get to loot. And this is the beautiful part. Since supplies are just supplies, that means no lookups when you're looting. Just roll the dice and see what you get. It's
Perfection.
And on the topic of loot and supplies, you also have this bit about scrap, which is the money in this world, which is pretty interesting because that's not something you carry around like bottle caps in the Fallout universe. It is literal scrap, so you're going to need something to haul it, and a lot of it. And of course, that opens the door for some fun and interesting times to figure out how you're going to do just that. There's also some small tweaks to the ranges and combat since you're going to be dealing with guns a lot more often considering the setting. There's also new rules for grenades. You also have some more rules on weapons themselves, which includes things like quality. Cobbled weapons have the chance to jam or break depending on the weapon, whereas higher quality weapons don't have to worry about such a thing. There's ways to modify your weapons, both guns and melee weapons, and there's vehicles. That's right, you get to cruise around the wasteland in style. Vehicles function kind of like their own character with their own stats, such as their size, weight, and maneuverability. There's about 10 pages or so on vehicles, and it can seem like a lot to take in for a game that is otherwise really simple to play. But Scotty, being Scotty, came in with some pro GMing advice, and I'll just read it word for word because it's great as is. Scotty says, no need to stress about the vehicle rules, my friend. Start with a few bikers, take your time to get the hang of it, and then slowly introduce cars. The key rules to focus on are maneuvering, which is just a simple skill check, and of course, shooting at others and getting shot at while speeding across the wasteland. You've totally got this. And I appreciate that. It's a good reminder that you don't have to dump everything in all at once, and that even you, Mr. and Mrs. GM, are allowed to take your time and learn things too. Which is good because there's so much new stuff here to play with. All right, let's see, what else do we have in here? Some words about using high-tech gear in place of magic items, some bits about making the most of weirds and neuroflux, and of course, bunches of new monsters to fight, and as always, Sean Bova absolutely knocks it out of the park with the artwork. This stuff is fantastic. Which actually reminds me, in one of my earlier EZD6 videos, I offered him a whole $5 for a post-apocalyptic squirrel, and all I got was a blister rat. I mean, it is a rodent at least, but somehow Glee, of all people, made it into the artwork, and I didn't. It's terrible. Terrible. Anyway, once you get past all the monsters, you find some additional rules such as shooting and cover, dice pool challenges, contamination level, starvation, and the like. And it probably goes without saying you don't have to use all of these, obviously. That's the beauty of TTRPGs, right? We take what we want and only what we want, and then we sprinkle in a little bit of our own because we can't leave well enough alone. But on the note of optional rules, there is just a list of optional rules to customize your game even more, like the Things Breakout Here rule. And I'd like to think that I'm responsible for this one, the Karma Captain. Yeah, when you and your friends are all too dumb to keep up with your karma, you put the responsibility on one person. If he forgets to remind you to take your karma by the end of your turn, you just don't get it. I don't actually know if I'm the real reason that's there, but I will certainly take the blame for it. But more seriously, there's some really neat ones in here. I love the villain dice rules. Essentially, special enemies will get their own hero dice, like the players, and use them in the same way that the players do. And then there's another additional die rule called power dice, but you know what? That's a secret. You'll have to pick up the book yourself to see how those work. And really, that is about the end of the book. After that, there's a lot of stuff on special loot and some generators to use, including a whole mission maker. But that brings us to the critical part of all these reviews that I do over here, and that's what didn't I like about EZD6's new Wasted World? Well, let me write it on the board for you. I actually don't have any complaints. I know some folks think I don't like the karma system, but it is actually a really neat system, and it's even better when you use it right. But it is also fun to play without it and just use more hero dice instead. Who knew that you could enjoy these games in more ways than one? Wasted World looks really awesome, and I'm super excited to try it out with longer missions that take multiple sessions to get through so we can make proper use of the new supply mechanics and looting. Really, the only thing that I'm sad about here is that I barely have any post-apocalyptic assets and dungeon drafts, so making maps is going to be a bit rough. Oh well. Anyway, shout out to this guy. He joined the Discord while I was working on this, and I figure with a name like that, he must be a swell individual. And that's it. That's all I got, folks. Scotty once again did an amazing job. The mechanics he comes up with never cease to amaze me, and how he can just simplify all that stuff the way he does. And of course, Bova's art is fantastic as always. Awesome, awesome stuff. So yeah,